So here we have number 10. Number 10 starts out a little bit differently because it's already factored, which is awesome. So now we can take our already factored form and right from there figure out our zeros and their multiplicities. So our first zero, if we set negative 2x to the fourth equal to 0, then that will be x is equal to 0. Set x minus 8 equal to 0 and x is equal to positive 8, and set x plus 2 equal to 0 and x is equal to negative 2. So our first 0 is 0 with a multiplicity of 4, 8 with a multiplicity of 3, and negative 2 with a multiplicity of 2. Just a reminder that the multiplicities come from the exponents that your 0 is raised to, the power. Okay, so let's figure out if they will bounce or pass through these zeros. So at x equals 0, since it has a multiplicity of 4, that's an even number, so our graph will bounce off of x equals 0. X equals 8 has a multiplicity of 3, which is odd, so that means it will pass through. And on x equals negative 2 is even, which means it'll also bounce off of negative 2. Okay, so we're done with our zeros, so let's plot them. We have 0, positive 8, and negative 2. Now let's figure out our end behavior. In our end behavior, we're going to make a little chart for our left side and right side so we can see how our graph will end up looking. So for the first thing we need to know what our leading coefficient is. Our leading coefficient is negative 2. So we have a negative leading coefficient. And since this is a negative leading coefficient, that determines the right side of our graph will end going down. Now we need to determine whether or not it's an even or odd degree so we can determine what our left side is doing. So this ends up being an odd degree because if we take all of the degrees of the individual zeros, 4 plus 3 plus 2, we get 9. Now 9 is an odd number, which means that my graph will be going in opposite directions. So if I know my right side is going down, then that means that my left side will be going up. So let's graph our end behavior. Now we need to figure out our y-intercept. Now in this case we actually know our y-intercept already. Our y-intercept will be at the point 0, 0. Because if we have an x there, then that means our y is 0 at any of these x coordinates. So, but just for a visual, if you want to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for all of the x's. In this case, in that first term there, negative 2 times 0 raised to the 4th power, that will be 0, which makes everything it's multiplied by be 0 as well. So f of 0 is equal to 0. So our y-intercept is 0, 0, like we already knew. Okay, so now we're good to fill in the rest of our function. So from the left side, we hit negative 2 first, and it has to bounce off of negative 2. So we bounce off negative 2, rise up, go through, and find 0. And since 0 has a multiplicity of positive 4, which is even, we will bounce off 0, then find our way all the way to positive 8, which will pass through positive 8. And there you have it.